Breathe, Think, Love is a podcast showcasing an innovative approach to health and healing beyond the walls of mainstream medicine. Your hosts, Suzanne and Jason, will unveil how we harmonize scalar energy, lymphatic system, and bioelectricity of the body for a holistic preservation of our spirit and soul from a modern roots modality. The intertwining of the triunity of our being unleashes immeasurable power, especially amplified in nature, and will prove to be organically expansive in community. I don't know.
Me too.
But anyway, so happy to be back. And you know, on that note, let's get right on to what we're going to be talking about today, because we were talking about the electromagnetic spectrum in the last podcast. And maybe we'll go into a little bit more briefly as far as the key players in the visible light spectrum. So on the screen there, you should see, courtesy of Raw Optics. I got this from their website. So on screen, I've got from Raw Optics, a nice slide that explains light. And really, you do see blue and green, red, and UV light. So these are key when it comes to obviously producing or synthesizing natural vitamin D, right? And also healing. There's healing light here where we're talking about the red light. And blue light, it's key to even producing vitamin A. You know, and some people probably never heard of that how light.
And the blue light is daytime.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So the blue, so when you look at the sun, it has that yellow appearance, but it really emits 535 hertz frequency, which is green, and chlorophylls really resonate with that. And so, but during the daytime, we've got blue light that has to be balanced with the red light. So on average, it's about 40% red light, 45%. But during summer, there's actually more red light compared to winter. Exactly. We were listening to it. Yeah. So in the winter time, there's more blue light. And even the variation actually impacts how we produce our vitamin D naturally. Yeah, you were going to say?
I was just going to say it's the light story. I was just thinking about when we were talking about it and the connection to different things that I'd never thought about before, like fire.
Yeah.
Fire gives you the red light.
The infrared light, yes.
Which is interesting because in the wintertime, you'd need a fire, but it's compensating. The fire's giving you more red light.
Right.
We talked about that? I just found it interesting. It's all part of the light story.
And so this, we say all this because it actually ties with vitamin D. So there's, when I say vitamin D, we probably, because we live in Canada and probably we're like sun deprived, we default to, the supplement. But that's not what I'm talking about. And I'm probably going to speak a little bit more about that later on. But I'm talking about the naturally occurring vitamin D. And we actually have two types of vitamin D, right? One is stored in the liver, and the other one is the active form of vitamin D. And just by that alone, the vitamin D, for it to be used by the immune system, by the body, is super crucial, right? As far as health and your immune health, it needs to be turned into an active form. And there's some key players, some key vitamin and mineral that's needed to be able to activate that. But as far as...
It's a hormone, isn't it? D?
Exactly, yeah.
Because I never knew that before. Vitamin D is actually a hormone.
Vitamin D is a psychosteroid hormone.
Right.
So...
I never knew that.
But the level of vitamin D that's stored is impacted based on the red light, the blue light. So a point being is blue light isn't all that bad, right? I know the trending is, oh my gosh, like we need to have blue light blocking glasses and stuff. But during the day, the difference between indoor blue light and outdoor blue light is the lack of the balance of the red light.
Right.
So during the day, there has to be that balance. That's a perfect light spectrum, or that is going to help plants thrive, right? Same thing with us. We're like plants as well. And so typically at solar noon is when the UV light, UVB, UVA, comes to the surface or becomes available. But most people don't understand that we really are designed to be outdoors most of the times, right? We talked about this in previous podcasts.
Yeah.
And we have these photoreceptors in our eyes, also in our skin.
On our skin, yeah.
On our skin or in our skin, yes. And so every living creature on planet Earth requires pigmentation to actually create signal. And so, meaning we're designed 365 days a year to set our eyes on the sunrise and also set our eyes on the sunset. And so let's ask ourselves, how many days in a year do we actually take the time to do that, or even, have the privilege of being able to do that because of our
I love the way we're talking about all these things, because it's never been part of anybody's conversation I've ever been part of in my lifetime. And it's such a big part of overall health, right? Like, people think of health, the vitamins. Well, the vitamins play into the light story.
Yeah.
Right? And it's all correlated, but like, you don't think of it. And why would you? Nobody talks about it.
No.
But when you start looking at the information and the studies, you look at the health, the picture on a bigger scale, right? It opens your eyes to, it's not just this, it's this, that.
It starts with consciousness, I guess. Once you know better, you do better. And how, I guess our goal is to bring up this conversation so that people would actually either, be questioning themselves or even ask the right questions and be hungry for more information. But point being is, just by simply setting your eyes in the sunrise, within the first hour of the sunrise, you're resetting your circadian rhythm, so your body clock. And so when you get to do that, let's say you have the luxury of doing that.
It's free every morning when the sun's out.
Then around about between maybe 8 to 10 a.m., you want to get out and try to expose as much skin as you can and get exposure to the combination of blue, green, red light. Because what that does, and we're not going to have time to get into the mechanisms and the science behind it, but what it really does is you have to understand that the spectrums of light have different wavelength to them, right? So red, or infrared too, has the longest wavelength. But when it comes to the opposite end, which now it's UV or ultraviolet light, it's like, it's much, much shorter, in other words. So, but the UV light is what produces the vitamin D, right? But think about it. Okay, so it's such a short wavelength. The question is, and that particular wavelength has to reach the mitochondria. And if you look at the cell, there's all organelles inside the cell, and then there's mitochondria inside. So that's a cell within a cell kind of thing, right? So we have to think, how does the mitochondria get hit by the UV short wavelength, right? So it turns out that nature has it all figured out, and it have always been designed that way. And that is so first of all, set your eyes on the sun, and then get out within 20, 30 minutes in the sun. Expose as much skin as you can. So that prepares your blood vessels, your cells, and something about that spectrum actually attracts the red blood cells just underneath the skin, right? And so when the UV light, the solar noon hits, and then now the UVB spectrum comes out, then it just preps the cells to receive that spectrum of light that produces vitamin D. But think about it. We have smoke breaks. we have all these other breaks, but do we get sun breaks? Do we get,
No, you're not allowed.
right? So point is, it's super crucial for us to understand that, especially that the sun's coming out. I mean, we're going to get more sun in the summertime, right? So we're all excited about that, right? So just to talk a little bit about the body clocks, and then I want to get into the minerals and vitamins that really help activate the stored D in the liver, okay? So the slide that talks about the circadian rhythm, so that would be, right. So we have to understand that we have this, you'll see it
I don't have that slide.
at the center.
Oh, yeah.
So most people are familiar with the pineal gland. So you see it's actually not, most people think it's right in the third eye kind of thing,
Yeah.
or by above the nostril, the nose there, but it's not. It's right at the dead center, right there where the brainstem is, just above the brainstem. And so that's actually where melatonin is also, it's rich in melatonin, right? And it's involved in the production of melatonin, the pineal gland. But like right in front of the pineal gland and in front of that part is what's called suprachiasmatic nucleus.
I knew that.
So suprachiasmatic nucleus, so suprachiasmatic nucleus. So
Wow.
SCN, in other words. But that part of the brain is actually what regulates and what is in charge of the circadian rhythm, the clocks inside our body, right? Mm-hmm. And that is very sensitive to blue light. So when this particular SCN it can get fried up, or it can get affected with too much exposure to non-native blue light. So remember, I'd said blue light that's good should be balanced with the red light during the day. But most of us are indoors. And so it's all blue light. So there's hardly any red light. And what's happening is this SCN is getting disrupted. So when you're exposed, especially during the nighttime, as soon as the sun sets, and then you're still exposed to only blue light. So the way nature has it designed is that as soon as the sun sets, the blue light shuts off. So we really shouldn't have any blue light, but we're still exposed indoors, right?
That's why a lot of people can't sleep, right?
You got it, because
the
once the
melatonin's not
clock,
being activated.
you got it. So once the SCN, that clock is disrupted because of the blue light, it shuts off the melatonin. And so it really changes your orientation to time, right? And even if you look at your phone, so the heat temperature on a normal iPhone or whatever Android is equivalent to solar noon. So imagine that. So at 10 p.m., midnight, you're looking at your phone and you're telling your receptors that it's lunchtime, right? So that disrupts your body clocks. Then you wake up in the morning and you're not outside again. So not receiving that full spectrum of light in the morning affects the SCN. Jet lag affects the SCN. So shift workers who are exposed to like this blue light at night, it deregulates their gene, this particular SCN as well. And yeah, so it's just key for us to understand that this part is really when we are not, our body clocks are off. All the other processes in the body, the metabolic processes, the heart variation, it just changes, right? And so with that, I want to also, do you have anything you wanted to input?
It's just interesting how your health, like how light actually enters through your eyes and you're not really aware of it, or you're not really thinking of it, right? And it's doing stuff to you. And people don't think about being outside or being inside and how it affects your health, right? If you think about it, a lot of people don't even go outside anymore, right?
I think our focus so much when it comes to if we're not feeling the greatest and we want to better ourselves, our focus is pretty much chemistry, right? It's like, or supplementations or biological, right? We don't really see that we're first a light. We're light beings.
Right.
And so even every cells, right, have receptors, and they're all designed to create signals. You know, they're in even our skin, our eyes, our hair.
It's like the glasses that some people wear, that you wear, right, at nighttime if you're watching a movie or something. And
Yes.
people will laugh at you, but
You look silly.
if
or
you
whatever,
understand why. And
well, plus
makes
I
sense,
I
right?
would incorporate more so these, especially with young people these
Yeah,
days.
definitely.
Like you'd mentioned earlier, there's a lot of young people who aren't able to sleep
Right.
actually, and it's some people can sleep maybe, but then their sleep's interrupted. You know, can't stay asleep. And while we've probably normalized that and we attribute it to stress and whatever else stimulation is available, maybe it's just not healthy, because when you go to sleep is when the crucial cleaning takes place, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, talking about the vitamin D and how it needs to be activated, there's really 3 key things that's needed. Okay, if we want to keep it simple, right? So vitamin D, the stored version of it, responds to a receptor. And the receptor of vitamin D stored is actually magnesium. Most people probably have or have not heard of that. So magnesium is the receptor for vitamin D that's stored. So in other words, if you get your vitamin D levels checked and the doctor says your vitamin D is low, you're deficient, oh my gosh, we don't jump to the conclusion right away
Right.
that you're deficient of vitamin D and you start supplementing like crazy, because what you don't want is toxicity of vitamin D. And we're talking synthetic vitamin D. We're not talking about the naturally occurring one. And so what's the possible reason? It's possibly that it's not getting picked up. Your vitamin D is not getting picked up because you're deficient of magnesium.
Right.
Okay. So again, how do we activate vitamin D naturally? We need the magnesium because that's
And that's a supplement
the
that
receptor.
most people need because it gets depleted from other things,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Like, as I've come to learn.
Yeah. And on top of that, you also need nuclear receptors. And it really is, just to hit it direct, you get that kind of nuclear receptor from cod liver oil or retinol A. Okay, it's retinol A. It's basically animal fat.
Right.
Right? So there's a difference between regular vitamin A and retinol A. And if you're looking for a very good concentration of that, you want to support your immune system and vitamin D to be activated. You want to get on your magnesium and your retinol A. And the other key player to this is copper, which we'll get to if we have time. But when it comes to these minerals that's key to our health, I'll just go over 4 of them and the relationship of because especially most people, especially if you're finding that you're fatigued, you know, if you don't seem to have the energy that you used to have, or you easily get tired after meals, you know, we can't just resort to the multivitamin approach, right? I always say, when you know better, you do better. So a lot of times we just supplement multivitamins because that's the trending, or that seems to be the easiest. Oh, look, it's 1 bottle, 1, 2, 3 pills, and it's got everything in it.
But it's detrimental. It could be.
But you have to look at the list of ingredients or the way the ratios are between the vitamins that's in these things. And a lot of times it's not balanced. And a lot of times you're actually wreaking more havoc. You're actually making, it's counterintuitive, right? So the 4 minerals I want to just go over, and just to keep things simple, the relationship between magnesium, calcium, potassium, and sodium. Okay, so if you imagine for a second, I want you to imagine an island and you're in the middle of the ocean.
No problem.
Right? Okay. So the way these minerals work is that magnesium and potassium, they like to hang out in the cells. Okay. And calcium and sodium likes to hang out outside of the cells. Just remember that.
So the cells is the island.
So basically, inside the cells is the island.
It's the island.
So meaning magnesium and potassium. So if you think about it, these are greens, right? The sources of them are greens. You get your magnesium from certain fruits, but like think of plants. So just like an island, rich. And then think of the ocean water filled with salt water or sodium and some calcific calcium, right? So just think of it. That's how, first of all, that's how it should be. Anytime there's a misbalance in the body, whether it's maybe you just anything non-native to the body, right? Or even completely you get so upset or you're super stressed, then there's shifts in this, right? Then if there's more sodium or ocean water getting to the island, right? So let's say sodium ends up more inside the cells, that's not good. Or if you know, or the potassium ends up, you know, it's just not good. So these levels, and so we've talked about the importance of the autonomic nervous system and how that should be regulated, right? So when I say autonomic nervous system, think of the fight or flight or rest and digest. So we're supposed to be 90% of the time in rest and digest or parasympathetic state.
Yeah.
Supposed to be. Okay, and then we're only supposed to be in the fight or flight on that survival mode. Maybe when we're driving to work, of course, you want to pay attention.
But where are most people?
Maybe when you're trying to meet a
flight.
Deadline or something, right? Yeah. But then when it's lunchtime, when it's lunch break, and it's time to go to rest, we should be shutting that off.
Most people don't rest nowadays, right?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
They're stuck in that.
Or they think they're resting, but they're not.
But they're not.
So how do these minerals basically affect the autonomic nervous system? So just keep in mind when it comes to what turns on your parasympathetic state or your rest and digest, potassium does that. Okay, so what shuts off your rest and digest is sodium, right? So calcium is what turns on your sympathetic response or your fight or flight response. And then magnesium is what shuts off your rest and your sympathetic response or your fight or flight. So now going back to lifestyle, if you look at if you look at our diet for a second, and what's most prominent, the minerals that's most prominent in our food, in our water, well, it's sodium, right? There's a lot of sodium in chips and also calcium fortified.
Fortified, yeah.
You know, like we're talking the Kellogg's brand or whatever, the cereals, everything is calcium rich. Mm-hmm. So when it comes to calcium and sodium, so remember, calcium is what turns on your fight or flight. So if we're already, filled with calcium in our water or whatever, and then we're also...
Hey, but it has the health check.
right? So...
Kellogg's.
So we're swimming in sodium, we're swimming in calcium. So in other words, this is why we're always hyper vigilant, hyper, just always on, what is that? Like always just stressed, I guess, right? Because there's no break. So we're
chaos
really
in the body, right? Like people don't know what is causing it, but it's a lot of different things causing it.
Right.
Right.
Like in other words, we really should be we don't need to supplement in calcium, is what I'm trying to say.
If we were just aware of these things, it would make sense to you.
Yeah.
You know? Makes sense to me since I've learned.
We don't need to supplement on calcium. So I want you to, a lot of the what's out there is, okay, you know, I need my calcium supplements, right? If you want to have strong bones, calcium. Hey, maybe you're having issues with, maybe you're losing a lot of your electrolytes. You're sweating lots because you're an athlete. The doctor will say, you know what? Let's uptick your sodium. So, but then again, we don't consider the things that's already in the environment. So now you're increasing your number of your sodium levels and calcium levels. So you can imagine what I'm trying to say. Mm-hmm. So here's the other thing. There's also a relationship between sodium and magnesium and potassium and calcium. So when calcium is high, okay, potassium drops. Okay? When sodium goes up, magnesium drops. Okay? So think about this. When calcium and potassium, there's a off in that ratio. Okay?
Yeah.
Do you know what the problem there would be? It's likely the thyroid. So the calcium and potassium has been linked. Too much calcium has been linked to hypothyroidism.
That's why maybe a lot of people have thyroid problems nowadays.
There's another study. You're absolutely right. There's another
I'm just
study
trying to
out
make
there
a correlation, right?
That hypothyroidism is under. It's basically it's underdiagnosed. Most people have issues with their thyroid. Okay,
I wonder why.
Hyper, and then here's a relationship: sodium and magnesium. When the ratio for this is off, what gets affected is your adrenals.
And what do they put so much in the food? Sodium.
You got it, yeah.
It's in all,
so
laced in all the food.
Here's the other thing.
So it's dropping your magnesium.
You got it. So here's the other thing. When we are stressed,
that too.
When we're stuck and we're actually really stressed, the first thing that shoots up is sodium. So remember what I said? When sodium goes up, what goes down? Magnesium. Okay.
Which is key.
Right?
I've come to learn.
So now, think about it. Now, let's look at it from a different perspective. Let's look at magnesium and potassium from our food sources, like vegetables and, fruits and stuff like that. The problem there is our soil is acidic. You can ask any farmer, when the state of the soil is acidic, basically magnesium, all the nutrients are down.
It's like when they spray it with glyphosate.
Yeah, then there's another issue there that has biochemistry.
But it depletes the soil of magnesium.
Yeah. So, in other words, we all need deficient in magnesium and potassium, right? So now this is why, we've come up with this. I just want to take magnesium for a second because sometimes we don't realize that we're actually depleting magnesium. Well, we're already depleted in the soil. So from our food sources, it's already deficient. But our lifestyle also contributes to the deficiency in magnesium. Because why? Remember what I said, stress. Mm-hmm. When we stress ourselves, and we're not just talking about like relationship stress. We're talking about cellular stress, right? So
you're talking toxins and stuff?
Well, even cellular stress, exactly. The pathogens, the toxins, and the misbalances, lymphatic congestions, So just to make it clear for our audience, right? How do we make ourselves sick, Jay? So we've come up with
just live a normal lifestyle.
Actually, no, we didn't come up with it. There's and this is a part of a lot of my information is coming from Morley M. Robbins. So the book, I'm going to have it projected on screen. This book is called Cure your fatigue.
Yeah, that's a very interesting
And
book.
there's a big focus on copper here, which we'll get to when we get to it. But
Which again, who's heard of that? Have you heard of copper before in your diet? Like,
as how it's
and how it correlates to your health?
mining, right? We live,
like you think copper
we
is like
live
a
in a
penny
mining
or something,
town
right?
here.
You're like, we eat copper, but it actually conducts electricity, right?
so
So
copper.
there's a thing to it.
So there's a difference between copper, like from the mines, and bioavailable copper, in which the cells actually use it and need it. Okay. So yes, if you maybe have some arthritis and you wear copper bracelets and stuff like that, it helps. But
It's not the same thing.
the bioavailability of actually consuming copper is different. Okay.
And it's things like bee pollen and stuff like that. that
Yeah,
have a high-
we'll get
yeah,
to that,
yeah.
right? But I guess just to throw in,
Right.
because since we're in the copper subject, just for you, the people out there who are maybe in trying to get rid of parasites or in parasite cleanse, just so you know, parasites cannot stand the frequency of copper.
Right.
Okay, so I'll just throw that out there. We'll maybe unpack that a little bit more at future podcasts. But for the time being, Jay,
Yeah.
why don't we just make it real? Okay, so what's our top 10 list? How do we make ourselves sick?
Right.
Right?
So these are the ones that are depicting scenarios, right?
Yeah.
Of like how to
How to
destroy your health.
deplete magnesium.
Deplete magnesium, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so the first one that we had here is please set your alarm, but for as late in the morning as possible, in the morning as you can. There's no better way to start your day than in a total panic, thereby expending what little magnesium that remains following a restful night's sleep. Drag yourself out of bed, get a nice hot shower, and be sure to brush your teeth with a brand name toothpaste. This post-slumber combo will flood your body with toxic halogens, which is chlorine gas and fluoride, which are amazing at binding up magnesium, thereby making it perfectly biounavailable. It's perfectly written, right? That's your standard North American way of life, getting up in chaos and brush your teeth.
Right? There's
and
no
you're
deep,
destroying
no
your...
mindful deep breathing, no...
And this is where it all starts.
Right?
Right, and there goes your magnesium.
Yeah. Okay, that's our number one. Excellent.
Right, yeah.
What other ways would this person...
Would you like me to continue?
Yes, continue.
No problem. Befriend your nearest Starbucks barista. The really caring ones will sell you a Trenta 31 ounce brimming with the strongest coffee on the planet. No kidding. This is an amazing way to fuel and start your day. Given that your magnesium levels are lowest at 7 a.m., this will flood your body with a tsunami of caffeine, triggering an unstoppable adrenaline rush, and then wash what little magnesium remains during your nonstop trips to the bathroom. Don't stress about this. It's automatic.
See, with little effort.
Right?
So, and
So
I just
people
want to
get up,
highlight...
they do that, and then they go to Starbucks, and then like...
But I want to
Bang,
highlight,
bang,
even
right?
having your coffee at an empty stomach, you're not helping yourself, because to wake you up, your cortisol levels are already elevated. And then you have coffee at an empty stomach at very concentrated
Or
levels,
Starbucks.
whatever,
Yeah.
then you're adding on. So this is what this is trying to depict. Okay, it's automatic. You don't even need to think
And
about
maybe
it.
that's why you have to have 3 or 4 coffees to wake up, because it's not actually doing its job.
Yeah. Yeah.
The way you think.
Great. A great way to deplete magnesium. Great way to get sick. What else?
Yeah, right.
What else, Jay?
Interesting. Moving right along here. So after you have your Starbucks, if possible, on your congested commute to work, please call your spouse, your best friend, your neighbor, or whomever, and pick a fight about some minor but annoying habit that they've got. That's hilarious. Or talk about Trump. Oh my God. This added emotional tension will really get your stress alarms signals firing. Remember, the less magnesium we have, C1 and 2, to tap into, the better for our soaring
Calcium.
The calcium and magnesium strategy. Now, the slightest provocation will set us off, which will only accelerate our stress hormone response and further speed the magnesium loss. Don't you just love these endless negative feedback loops? Best of all, they're all over the body. So interesting, eh?
Again, this is
because right about the
highlighting-
time you leave the house, you get your Starbucks, they start scrolling in the news world and get right.
Well, again, your cortisol level is elevated, and so
Yeah.
now there's emotional stress coming in, and so of course you're gonna, the easiest.
What's next? Then you get to work.
Right?
Interesting.
Okay, so that's another way to deplete magnesium. Number 4.
Right. Now, right about 10 a.m., just when your blood sugar is heading towards the sub-basement, please start your carbo loading for the day. The more refined, the better. This is inevitable. Sugar spike will necessitate an insulin spike, which then requires a magnesium spike to restore all the excess glucose flooding your body. As your body becomes increasingly overwhelmed with these edible food-like substances, the magnesium loss will only accelerate. That's your bagels, that's your donuts, that's your cereals.
I wonder
right?
how many people are resonating with this lifestyle or this, just how you start your day. This is...
It's funny. We just went through one that's time you wake up to 10 o'clock and you've already been under attack for 4 hours, right?
Your magnesium is already under attack, yes.
Right. And how many people even think of magnesium?
Right.
I've never really heard of it, right?
Well, it's our precursor to talk about copper, but
Right.
we just want to highlight what else. So number
Right.
5, how else can you deplete
Okay,
magnesium?
so number 5. Where are we at here? It's lunchtime. But be careful, no nuts or seeds, no whole grains, and please, no greens, especially kale or spinach. Again, given that our goal is to ramp up the calcium-magnesium ratio, please eat the following: a cheese sandwich on white bread, some non-fat yogurt with fruits, aka sugar, on the bottom, and C, a glass of skim milk. Here's how this simple meal contributes to our skyrocketing ratio of calcium magnesium. I love the way this is written.
Yeah, so just a little bit of background here. When he's talking about the spiking up the ratios of calcium and magnesium, from ancient times, the ratio for calcium and magnesium should be 1-to-1. 1-to-1. And this is why I have mentioned earlier that even as far as supplementations, if you look at especially the multivitamins or even the combo vitamins, you'll see magnesium or sources, NHA or whatever, it's like 3,600 milligrams. And then you look at the magnesium, it's only like 200 milligrams. It's like, what? And then not only that, the calcium, right, requires K2 to be able to drive it into the bones and teeth. And there's nothing hardly. Anyway, so what's the ratio in that lunch or breakfast that you just described? So milk, 7-to-1. Yogurt, 11-to-1. Cheese, 26-to-1. We're talking about calcium to 1 part magnesium. Okay. Organic corn, 54-to-1. Antacids, 300-to-1.
And how many people are on those? And they're bad for you too.
Do you understand? Like, see my point?
I understand. And who feeds you? Where does the food come from? And then where do those vitamins come from? The same people. It's funny how they're feeding you something that counteracts the vitamins. Just saying.
Yeah.
Moving right along.
Right.
I just thought of that. Like, wow.
Yeah. So the point is, this is just a small example. So you've just had your lunch, and your ratio calcium magnesium is already way off. In addition to everything else that's gone on in the morning time since waking up.
And people wonder why they feel terrible.
Right. So what's number 6, Jay?
Number 6.
And how to deplete magnesium or how to get sick. Real easy.
Focus, Jay, focus. It's now almost 2 p.m. At this point in the day, chances are good that either you have a headache or a stomach ache, or likely both. By all means, pop some
over-the-counter
drugs. Interesting. The most popular, the better.
Or proton
Right.
pump inhibitors are
Right.
awesome
Of course, right?
for no magnesium strategy,
Oh my God.
right?
Right. Are awesome for, yeah. In fact, they are amongst at least 14 classes of drugs that are specifically designed to deplete your body of magnesium. Please read that sentence again, slowly. And given that calcium and magnesium work in a seesaw fashion in your body, when one goes down, i.e. magnesium, it's a lock that the other goes up,
which is calcium.
Calcium, right?
Yeah.
So interesting. Yes.
Which we
And
determined.
you never, yeah, right.
What did we say earlier? That it turns, so calcium turns on your fight or flight response, your sympathetic response. Right?
Wow.
Okay, so yeah, because you're trying to remedy what you of course, for you to be able to continue your work or whatever, you need to be able to at least relieve some of your pain, right? So what's number 7? So we're almost there to, we're halfway, more than halfway point.
So we're still in the afternoon, right? So number 7, okay. We've made it through that incredibly boring and or stressful meeting at work. Now it's snack time. Awesome. Let's really bring down magnesium to her knees. Please follow this step very carefully. Chow down on any kind of processed packaged snacks, ideally cooked in partially, I know, sorry, it's just funny, hydrogenated vegetable oil. Awesome. My favorite is potato chips. And swig down a diet soda. The chips, due to the trans fatty acids, are perfectly designed to stimulate calcium growth, aka calcification, and arterial plaque, and of course deplete magnesium levels inside your artery walls. And the HFCS, please forgive me,
Just corn sugars.
Yeah.
So you see again, right? So this is the snacking portion, right? So
Fructose sugars, right? That was the last I was supposed to read there. Cellular, what does it say? Are known to bind up your cellular magnesium due to the excess fructose.
Yeah. So when there's excess in fructose, that again is known to bind magnesium. And for us, we emotionally snack, right? We're bored. Either we can't wait that work is finished or whatever. We snack.
Right.
And so if you're a snacker out there, that's probably...
Pay attention to what you're snacking on.
Yeah, not only are you depleting magnesium, these essential minerals, you're also tiring out your pancreas. You're also tiring out your adrenals, because a lot of these processed food also has like toxins and stuff like that. So then, or maybe you don't have enough stomach acid to break down these things. So then the body thinks you're sick. So again,
electron stealers. Now we go back to that story, right?
Right.
Because it all ties together.
Okay, so we're almost to the end. We've got 2 more, maybe 3 more of how we get ourselves sick.
Right.
What's number 8 on the list there, Jay?
Number 8. It's been a tough day, but you still need a good workout. Let's really go for it. Hard cardio for 30, 40 minutes. There's nothing better than an intense workout at the end of the day to completely drain the magnesium in your heart and muscle tissues. Now for the
aerobophiles.
What the heck is that? Okay, keep in mind that it's magnesium that helps ATP to release that phosphorus atom and thereby create energy. The more intense the workout, the more ATP that's needed. And thus the more magnesium that must get expended. If possible, please keep running until you totally cramp up, as this is the perfect sign of near total magnesium depletion, which is tying you to electrolytes, right? It's the same thing, I guess, magnesium and
there you go.
Right?
And then it says when you're done,
I'm making the connection in all of this.
Please, actually. And then we end up rehydrating ourselves with the popular sport drinks with, again, a ton of sugars.
Gatorade, right?
Right?
Yeah.
So the thing is, Jay, here's the thing. I even have experienced this. Like sometimes when you've worked, entire day, and then the snow comes and there's a foot of snow, and then now you have to go out there and actually shovel.
Yeah.
Like you actually,
Well,
I do feel
I do a
that.
lot of activity like hikes and kayaking, and yeah, I see the correlation here. Totally. The magnesium and yeah.
So, but what I find is like when I cramp up like that, I don't know if I have with me magnesium spray.
Oh yeah.
And all you really do is when you cramp up like that, obviously you're depleted, totally depleted of magnesium. So you spray that on and you just rub
Works
it.
awesome. Yeah.
Rub it, tap maybe, and then maybe a bit of massage. Actually, the cramp goes away almost immediately.
Yeah.
And maybe drink lots of water and maybe put some Celtic salt in your drink or dissolve it in your tongue.
Yeah.
Right. So again, it highlights some of the what you think is just a normal cramping. No, you're actually depleting your magnesium.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, okay. So number 9, what's number 9?
All right. Number 9. Thank heavens. Now we can finally eat our big meal of the day. And given how stressful today has been, don't we deserve a treat? Never mind. That is getting late. Never mind that it's getting late. Likely after 9 p.m. if you do it correctly. So let's have something really yummy but fast. My sincere recommendation: a triple cheese, low fat, of course, deep dish pizza with refined crust, and wash it down with some wine and or beer. Ditto on the cheese and refined crust. And just know that there's no better diuretic on the planet than alcohol. The fastest sugar there is, it totally drains your magnesium levels. Trust me on that one. And then let's top it off with some ice cream. Yes, more dairy and even more sugar. You know, it's almost too easy driving the calcium magnesium ratio to the moon. Wouldn't you agree? I totally agree.
So again,
it's like we're driven to it.
So this big meal or whatever, it's like, I feel like it's we're emotionally eating. We're so stressed and it just feels good to eat like this. And then you want to sort of somewhat calm your nerves or whatever.
The convenience,
then you get into.
Like it's almost been crafted to be convenient. So you go to that.
Yeah.
Right.
So, right. It speaks.
Yeah, and we're just at supper time, early evening,
and a
lot of people, like, they're not eating.
Yeah,
you know, I've done it a lot over the years. Like, you're just busy, right? You don't sit down and eat till 9-10 o'clock, right?
Plus, when people are listening to what we're describing here, they're like, "Really? What?" But all I'm saying is, if you're, and you know this, you're the greatest doctor. Your body, you know your body the best. Mm-hmm. You're the greatest physician. So if you're not 100% and some of this stuff that we're reading is resonating, that's because likely you are going to need to maybe revisit or reevaluate your lifestyle and reevaluate some of the things, how you're remineralizing yourself or lacking thereof, electrolytes and these key things, right?
It's funny. Some of the people would be rolling their eyes at this stuff if they stopped and think about it. They actually probably don't feel the best, and meanwhile, they're rolling their eyes at what you're saying, and it's like, take the time and just read or listen to what we're saying, because you can't deny it.
It's just to get you to think, right? Because at some point, you're going to get so sick that you're not even going to have energy to even think about all these solutions or maybe do something about it. So my point is, while you still, have some kind of energy to be able to do something about this, be proactive about it.
I laugh because these are the same people that they get home after work and crash on the couch and turn on the blue light TV, right? And have the potato chips and the whatever, and it's just like, right?
It's pretty convicting.
And then roll their eyes at you.
So
meanwhile, you're outside doing stuff, right?
All right, so this is our top 10. Drum roll, 10, please. Yes. Oh my! So
we need that sound. Can you see that? Yeah. And finally, please stay up as late as humanly possible.
Yeah.
Just ignore the fact that you're totally exhausted. After all, you just ate your biggest meal a couple hours ago, and it needs to digest. Again, whatever you can do to maintain this high heightened state of sympathetic overdrive will be key. Surf the web endlessly, watch an adrenaline-craized movie, or stay up with Dave.
Or whoever, like the late
Dave
night
and
show
Conan,
people.
or Jay Leno, right? Or is he still on the air? I don't know. And if you do this right, and I'm confident you will, all the sugar and electronic stimulation will totally disrupt your sleep patterns, thus raising your key stress hormone, cortisol.
Mm-hmm.
Just know there's no better way to zap magnesium in your body than through chronic stress and thus chronically elevated cortisol levels.
So
wow, well said.
So we're back to where we started. We're talking about circadian rhythm and sleep patterns, and and this again is normalized, right? Like we're done our big meal, and a lot of times when you're stressed, you tend to eat late.
Yeah.
And a lot of times your
eating.
heaviest meal, also your meat, beef, chicken, you eat at 7, 8, 9 p.m. And you know that it takes time to break down these things, right?
Yeah.
So, and the kitchen's closing, so and
chaos on the
cortisol,
body.
exactly. So at the end of the day, you're probably not going to have good sleep. Right? So you're probably going to have interrupted sleep, and then your cortisol level's still high. So what happens? What is one sign that you've got way too much cortisol? Go do this. Feel the back of your neck, base of your skull or head, wherever.
I'm sure mine's fine.
And you see a bump there, or you feel like there's retention of fluid or bump right there. That's likely a sign that there's too much cortisol levels or stress levels that you're carrying. A little bit of a hump here, the base of your neck, in the back.
Oh, yeah.
Or you feel like your shoulder's tight or whatever. And so, again, now your lymphatic drainage is not the best. Grinding your teeth, kinds
right?
of subconscious, unconscious things that we do. So, yeah. So
That's
this is the
pretty wild. It's funny and we laugh.
Yeah.
But really,
so,
how to make yourself sick, right? Like,
and I know that's probably not the greatest way to end our podcast for tonight, but I guess just on a positive note.
being aware, right?
Yes,
it's a positive thing.
It is, because when you know the challenge, then you've won half the battle. But the thing is, how do we then? So given that, okay, right now you're like, okay, what the heck? This is what I'm used to right now. So what do I do in the meantime? So obviously what we're trying to highlight is you're deficient of magnesium. So then this is why you want to supplement on magnesium. Yeah. Okay, so I share with my clients, I suggest 2 kinds of magnesium. Magnesium malate during the day, because malate, M-A-L-A-T-E, that helps with ATP production, and it gives you energy during the day. Okay, and also for nighttime before bedtime, have magnesium bisglycinate. Okay, and that'll help you give you a really good restful sleep, relax your muscles, relax your gut. And most people don't understand how depleted we are. So on top of food sources, which is hardly any, and also maybe if you invest in a magnesium spray, on top of all that, you need 5 milligrams times your body weight.
The spray works awesome.
So whatever your weight is, times that by 5, that's in milligrams. That's how much magnesium you need to supplement on. Watch how you'll notice a difference. And also, if you're on vitamin D3 right now, vitamin D3 or vitamin D3 and K2, all I say is just give yourself a break. If you really want to understand how counterintuitive vitamin D3 is, and I know this is very controversial, you can check out Marley Robbins' book, Cure Your Fatigue. He talks about how balancing 3 minerals and 1 protein is the solution that you're looking for, because it really is a root cause. It's a root cause based approach. Also, if you're already so stressed and you feel like your adrenals, you're tired all the time. The other thing that's a quick thing that you'll probably feel something different is supplement on vitamin C. Okay. But please take note, if you have vitamin C that you buy off of a supplement store maybe, and you look at the ingredients and it says right there in bracket forms, it says ascorbic acid.
Oh, yes.
I highly suggest that you don't go that route. Ascorbic acid is really just the outer shell of vitamin C, which means it's not complete, which means
Synthetic. Right?
when you consume that, when you take it, it will steal something else essential in the body to complete itself. So not ascorbic acid. What you're looking for is whole C. Okay, so we're not gonna go to Florida and really wait for the oranges to ripen and actually before they pick it before it's time to ripe and artificially. We're not. Yeah. So what we're gonna do is as simple as camu camu.
Tastes awesome.
Okay, camu camu is whole C. Another alternative is
you can get it
acerola
in
cherry.
capsule form though, right?
You can
So
get
it doesn't
it in,
taste the best, but
it does not taste the best.
It's the best whole C. Right?
Right. It's camu camu or acerola cherry. Acerola cherry is actually whole C as well, but that one tastes better. You can get that in powder forms. But anyway, take your supplementations for vitamin C around 10 a.m. and in the afternoon around 2 to 4 p.m. Right? Because that's when your adrenals go for a dip. So meaning that's when all of a sudden you just feel tired. Like, what is it? And so most people will be like, that's our coffee break, right? But really all you're doing is your adrenals just go for a little dip. So just encourage the adrenals with the vitamin C. How and why? Because 95% of vitamin C is stored in the adrenals and kidneys. So that's why, just how many things two things that you want to try out. Magnesium, as I described earlier, and camu camu, and invest in magnesium spray, right? And then you'll see it really, especially when your lymphatic system is cleansed and drained and not congested. You'll see a big difference. But for some people who just, you spray the magnesium and you're not seeing a difference, probably you're clogged up and congested.
Going back to the magnesium, isn't there something beneficial for your skin too?
Yes. So also
especially in the summer, it was helping
summertime,
my color was awesome last summer using the magnesium spray.
Thank you for reminding me of that. But that's another thing. It's summer's coming
I almost
up.
looked Filipino last summer, seriously.
So it's super exciting because summer's coming up. But thanks for reminding me, Jay. But you're right. You want to maximize
that you had too, the lemongrass.
So you want to maximize your melanin production this summer before you go out and get sun-kissed by the sun. Spray magnesium all over you.
Yeah. I felt better overall, my wellness. Yeah. And I could feel that spray really was helping me.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's why I brought us back to that magnesium, because there's the edible one and then there's the topical spray.
Right.
But they do two different things, right?
Yeah. So get melanated this summer. If you're super sensitive to the sun, slowly introduce it. You don't need to do hours and hours, maybe 5
and again, for
10
the
minutes.
pain. So if you're working out and you're sore, that magnesium really addresses pain, eh?
Yeah, because it relaxes your muscles.
Right, yeah.
And the other thing too about that is melanin, or this pigmentation of the skin, is actually a natural sun protector, I should say.
Right.
So the more contrary to
exactly what we're talking about here.
So all I'm saying is,
and it's not needed if you're eating properly.
Yeah.
Only key things like the ones you're talking about, those are highlighted. Like if you're going to supplement in those.
So think about what I've said. Think about what I've said for a second. So let's say you are supplementing, right? And you still feel like crap. So maybe what we could do, if you want to actually just test it, because remember, you're the scientist, you're the doctor, you're everything, right? You know your body the best. You should experiment on yourself, right? Stop the vitamins, the multivitamins approach. Stop vitamin D3. Stop supplementing on zinc. Stop supplementing on iron, calcium. And
study yourself. Have a little logbook and be conscious of how you're feeling after you're cutting, right? And
just stop it. Okay.
Yeah, but take note of it.
Take note. Just by simply stopping it.
Yeah.
You're probably going to feel better just by stopping it.
Right.
And then the next level is you then start These are Morley Robbins' root cause protocol. Start on magnesium. Start on copper.
Yeah.
Well, we didn't really talk about copper, but vitamin C, right? And, you know, and you did mention iodine. Another huge thing is iodine, right?
That's why I brought it up.
So lymphatic congestion or lymph stagnation, one of the root causes of that is deficiency in iodine. Okay, so do you have iodine in your?
Most people
don't.
Most people think of iodine and it's like you put it on a sword.
Cabinet full of vitamins. I'm not big on vitamins.
Okay,
Right.
yeah.
I don't really take vitamins. Sometimes I'll get cramps and I'll take some calcium or something like that.
So maybe magnesium.
I feel
right.
like iodine is something that.
Yeah,
Okay,
it would be magnesium. Yeah.
But besides that, like I just kind of get what I need from food.
Right.
And I'd love to say that this is actually what I would love that we don't have to supplement. I would love to. But I wish we could say that as well in the state of our soils. So because our soils are depleted of nutrients, right? When soil is acidic, there's hardly any nutrients in there. So that's why you're supplementing just on the basic stuff. And magnesium, copper, and retinol A, okay, these three things are huge in the mitochondria.
And then if you bring up the
mitochondria,
the iodine,
I'll
if you
talk
bring
about
that into it.
Is there food you'd suggest for people that want to get magnesium inside of their body if they don't want to take the vitamin?
So magnesium really comes from plants and vegetables, or banana or whatever. Bananas,
organic
potassium.
greens. And
That's what I'm saying.
greens.
Unfortunately, unless we have a farmer or a place where we can go to where we know that their soil is rich in alkaline and not acidic, and there's no glyphosate.
You got to do it yourself.
Unless you know of someone who can assure you that it's nutrient packed, then by all means you don't need to supplement. But if we're a typical people, so how do you know you're depleted in magnesium? Let's say you're not sleeping well, you have cramps here, pains here and there, you've got gut issues, you've got
brain fog,
and simply you don't have energy, brain
fog.
all these things, right?
That's
So
the big one I've been looking into.
Brain fog.
I know I ordered on Amazon. I don't know if it's good or not, but I saw it on the Joe Rogan Lion's Mane.
Alpha Brain, yeah.
Those two I ordered. I want to try it.
I want to start maybe growing that.
So remember, everything that you consume needs to be processed and broken down and absorbed, right? So the problem is this: when things are constricted, right, or tight because you're stressed. Remember, we went through a list of how to. It's basically a stressful description, right? How you deplete magnesium. What happens is things congest in the body. When there's a congestion in the body, one of the first things that gets impacted is the liver, right? And if you're deficient of iodine is one of the ingredients to the stomach acid, and iodine is also what actually is responsible for trucking things in and out of the cells. It's like the trucking system of the body. So my point is, if your liver is not the greatest, then how can the enzymes be produced to break down the food? So magnesium is responsible for, like, depending on what books you read, 600 to 700 enzymes. Okay, it's what creates it. And in some books, they state that magnesium and copper, 3,699 enzymes.
Is it?
You understand? Whatever we consume, we need to break it down.
Right.
And for that to happen, enzymes is the key.
And then,
so if we're lacking that, how are we going to absorb it? Mm-hmm. And a lot of maybe some people purchase these things and they feel great. Don't underestimate the power of placebo effect, right? And it's been tested and proven. Mm-hmm. But my point is, the reason why I'm so passionate about the magnesium and adrenal, the vitamin C, is because when I'm moving and I'm activating lymphatic system, I mean, I get rid of what's causing the congestion to begin with. I'm hoping that you wouldn't tighten up again, you know, that things won't constrict again. So in other words, maintenance. How do you maintain? How do you get the circulation going? Magnesium helps with circulation because opens up, it relaxes you, right? So this is, and if you're stressing all the time and you're adrenal fatigue, then how are you going to maintain a healthy lymphatic system? So my point is, I love to activate boost, but I also love that you maintain it, is my point, right?
And then we take the conversation back to water.
Yep.
Right? And how important water is. And then we bring up deuterium
Oh,
and
yeah.
how it depletes iodine, right?
No,
Is that what it does?
deuterium deplete. You're really throwing at lots of really.
Yeah, I'm trying to.
So it's good. Water is huge.
Of course.
But when water is rich in deuterium, did we talk about this before?
I don't think so.
Okay. So
We still got
deuterium.
time, right?
You got about an hour and 8 minutes. It's okay.
I think it's funny. I think it's funny. Thank you. So deuterium, hydrogen, as you know, H2O, right?
Mm-hmm.
Water. Deuterium is an isotope of hydrogen.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so in other words, deuterium is heavy and bigger molecule of hydrogen or atomic structure, right? So, but my point is, when there's deuterium present in the water, it's heavy and it's big. And the problem there is it creates stress in the mitochondria. So the mitochondria produces ATP, and there's a cycle, the whole cycle or processes that's involved in doing that. But the more water is depleted of deuterium, the more it fits the protons and that fits the nanomotors inside the mitochondria, actually will allow for that motor to produce ATP effortlessly without, because if deuterium is there, it's just harder for the motor to work, then it doesn't produce as much ATP, right? So basically, if you are really trying to achieve the best health and wellness, you just want to understand how to support the mitochondria,
Right.
because mitochondria is 90% where we source our energy from. We talked about in our earlier podcast that we have at least 5 rechargeable batteries. One of them is mitochondria. But if you look at how the mitochondria is actually involved in the process, in the processes of the body, it's huge.
Oh, yeah.
Like I think I've mentioned to you, we have about 40 quadrillion mitochondria. So the cells have the capability of reproducing mitochondria depending based on the energy needs of the body, right? So when I talk about magnesium, I talk about retinol A and copper. These 3 things help produce ATP. It's in fact dependent on these 3 minerals.
Right.
So you're including your vitamin D, your immune system, it's huge. So if we want to get into copper a little bit, because I think, so copper, what do you mean copper? So what's the best bioavailable copper source that we can all partake from? Bee pollen. Very simple, right? In the ancient times, they called bee pollen.
Dissolve well.
It depends.
It doesn't dissolve well in.
So it depends. The
yeah.
granules, it depends.
Yeah.
It depends. Some people just like to snack on, chew on the granules, right?
Put it on your
But-
salad. That's what I was doing before.
Yeah, you can do that,
Yeah,
or
or-
dilute it in tea or whatever. But
It doesn't work.
in ancient times,
Yeah.
they called bee pollen the golden dust.
Yeah.
So again, it's rich in bioavailable copper, and you simply you can start off with a half a teaspoon, work your way up to a teaspoon. You can have up to 3 teaspoons of copper per day. So, or bee pollen per day. And it really, you'll notice a difference. You will notice a difference.
It's interesting going back to the concept that you can look at the human body like it's a battery. And it's just interesting that copper, if you think of a penny, or copper is conductive for electricity. Like if you put heat to copper, it's instant.
Yeah.
Right? So it's interesting, the correlation, I guess.
So on
To me
planet
anyways.
Earth, okay, the only known mineral that is able to regulate because there's this, we're talking about oxygen and iron for a second, right? Which, if anything that has iron on it and it's oxygen, exposed to oxygen, what happens to it is it rusts.
Right.
So copper is the only mineral that's able to prevent or regulate both oxygen and iron. Okay, right. Because copper, especially the protein that mobilizes copper, which is called sky blue protein or ceruloplasmin, right? That ensures that iron does not get basically over, it doesn't get stuck in the tissues.
Rusty kind of.
Right. Because what happens...
I always think of the Parliament buildings because the green tips, it's copper.
Yeah, right. You were saying
because it doesn't rust.
So iron should be 70% in the blood.
Right.
Okay. What happens is when it ends up in the tissues, too much iron, excess iron in the tissues, and then you add on that you're stressing. So when you're stressing and then the body calls on more oxygen so you could produce, energy, and there's iron in the cells, what happens is literally the cells rust. Exactly what you said. So excess iron in the cells has been linked to aging, to degeneration, to illness and cancer and all that stuff. So point is, copper is the one that makes sure that it doesn't get, because it mobilizes it. Specifically the sky blue protein is what ensures that it stays in the blood. So super cool stuff.
Yeah. That's a good book. Give it a read.
Yeah, no, like, and if you want to follow some of his talks, he really does he does a really good job at explaining these things we talk about are pretty controversial.
Right, of course.
And he admits that himself, but he really does.
Right?
He really does. He has done his research and
misinformation.
There's a lot of support and paperwork, white paper that's available. It's just
so it's not so controversial.
No, right.
Right.
So other than that, really, I guess, like I said earlier, I encourage just to stop with maybe the multivitamin approach, iron supplements, unless you're bleeding to death. You probably don't need iron supplements. Calcium, and
we're not trying to sell anybody anything here. We're just giving you the information so you can do better and feel better, because we just want to help people, right? Like that's what we're all about, helping people with their health and their wellness, and we want to see people thrive, right?
And actually too much calcium has been linked to osteo issues. So counter to what's been...
Drink more milk.
Right? What has been talked about.
Right. So interesting.
So, yeah, other than that, really for our next podcast, we're probably going to get into a little bit more about copper and maybe how that's related to the light story and how, how we naturally produce even vitamin A and then we'll, if there's any questions or you're curious or you're like, even if you're just like, what the heck are you talking about? Like, feel free to drop a comment. In the YouTube comment section or reach out, our website. Yeah. And happy to engage. Right. Happy to engage in conversation with our audience because. Yeah.
Direct message us, whatever. Because we'd like to involve our audience, right, in some of this. Because if one person's got a question, other people have a question. That's why I bring up some of the questions, because some of the stuff I'm questioning, right? So obviously other people have the same question.
Plus, Jay, I've seen this work with clients. So I have seen a difference in...
And I've experienced a lot of what you talk about because you've educated me on a lot of these things too, which is super cool.
Yeah. And I just like the fact that I include it in as far as the health and healing of the lymphatic system. So that's part of the reason why I find that the combination of it, it complements each other so well, right?
Well, it's all encompassing. People think it's just this or just that. Well, you need all the components. Yep. Or like Dr. Tennant would say, to construct a house, you need all the proper materials.
Yep. Exactly.
If you want to build a proper house, it's got to have a good foundation. It's got to have, you can't just do the one thing and think it's going to give you a good house.
Plus, you need energy.
Yeah.
You need voltage in the cells.
Right.
And so what we talk about, these minerals and even having a good lymphatic system energizes the body. So without energy,
and your body's meant to heal itself if all the conditions are right.
Yeah.
But with all of these kind of things causing the chaos, that's why people are sick and not healing, because things aren't the way they should be for the body to take care of itself.
Oh yeah, the body's definitely designed to heal itself.
So
absolutely.
Again, it's part of why we're here talking about this, to educate people, right? Help.
Exactly. All right. Well, it's been awesome. Pleasure. Thanks, Tristan, for sharing some of yours.